This morning, calls for justice continue for an Enfield girl who was found dead inside of her home. Activists plan to gather outside of the courthouse later today in Hartford.
And that's where her stepfather is expected to face a judge today. Your reporter Katie Cohen live outside the courthouse sharing what we know about the case.
Well, community activists plan to be here outside the courthouse this morning around 10 o'clock, while Anthony Federline is inside facing a judge. He's facing sexual assault and risk of injury charges related to Eve Rogers' case, but he has not been charged for her death. As the investigation into the death of 12-year-old Eve Rogers continues, so do the questions about what happened to her. Anthony Federline was arrested in April, accused of sexually assaulting his stepdaughter. Federline pleaded not guilty to his charges and has been held on a $1 million bond. A warrant revealed Eve had 5 times the lethal dose of Benadryl in her system at the time of her death. Her cause of death is still pending. Today, no cameras will be allowed in the courtroom during Federline's appearance because of the nature of the charges, but outside at 10 in the morning, advocates are inviting the public to come honor Eve's life. They hope to spread awareness about her case and to fight for protections for other children in danger. Federline was a bus driver in Enfield before his arrest. We also know he has a criminal history out of Massachusetts and will be here in court and bring you updates all day today on Eyewitness News. I'm your reporter live in Hartford, Katie Cohen, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.